Okay, so have you ever been there? You're talking to someone in English, and suddenly silence. The really awkward moment.
Oh, definitely. Where the conversation just kind of stops
Yeah.
and your brain freezes up
Yeah, like, what do I say now? How do I react? How do I keep this thing going?
and you immediately start thinking, oh gosh, am I boring? Or
Mhm.
is my English the problem here?
Right. But listen, that feeling, so incredibly common. I think, honestly, everyone's felt that awkward pause.
Absolutely. And the good news, which really comes through in the sources we looked at, is that keeping a conversation flowing naturally, it's not some magic talent.
It's a skill.
It's totally a skill, something you can actually learn and, get better at with practice.
Which is why we did this deep dive, right? We went through a bunch of material focused specifically on the art of keeping English conversations alive.
Yeah, our mission was basically to pull out the absolute best, most practical techniques the sources offered, stuff to help you kill those awkward silences and sound more engaged.
And we found four main things kept popping up.
Mhm.
Four core techniques.
Mm.
We're going to unpack them. Things like how asking really good follow-up questions can totally change things.
And how just using natural reactions, little comments, can keep the energy up.
Yeah, that was interesting. Also, active listening, how that can make it all feel smoother.
And finally, how to switch topics without making it weird or abrupt.
Right. So by the end of this, the idea is you'll have some really concrete strategies straight from the sources to feel, well, more confident, more natural in your English chats.
Definitely. Should be really helpful.
Okay, then, let's unpack this. So first up, what do the sources say is maybe the most crucial thing for just keeping that conversation moving?
It really boils down to questions, but not just any questions, good follow-up questions.
Because if you just answer flatly and stop,
Mm,
well, the conversation dies right there, doesn't it?
exactly. The source material has this great analogy. It's like ping pong.
Yeah.
You hit the ball, they hit it back. Simple. A conversation needs that same back and forth. Someone says something, you need to react, engage, and then hit the ball back. Often that means asking a question.
And the sources really highlight a big mistake people make,
Yeah,
just giving the bare minimum answer.
totally. Let's use an example from the material showing what not to do.
Okay.
So someone asks, what did you do last weekend? And the reply is just, I read a book, full stop.
Right. I mean, it answers the question, technically.
But it gives the other person absolutely nothing to work with.
Yeah, they have to do all the heavy lifting now, come up with something totally new. It feels clunky.
Super clunky. So the sources stress a much better way is to add a little something extra, some detail, and this is key, bounce it back.
Okay, so same question. What did you do last weekend? What's the better reply?
Something like, oh, I read a book. It was actually this really interesting mystery novel I just picked up. Are you much of a reader? Or what do you usually like to do on your weekends?
Ah, okay, I see. Big difference. You added detail, really interesting mystery novel, showed a bit of you I just picked up, and then immediately turned it back.
Two questions even. A specific one, are you much of a reader? And a more general one, what do you usually do?
So the other person has options. They have hooks to grab onto.
Exactly. And the sources show it's not just about answering their questions well, it's about making your own statements more question-friendly.
How do you mean?
Well, instead of just saying, I like cooking, period,
Right, another conversation killer.
you could say something like, I really love cooking. Actually, I've been trying to figure out sourdough bread lately. It's surprisingly tricky, Do you enjoy cooking at all?
Okay, got it. Now they can ask about the sourdough or the tricky part, or just cooking generally.
Yeah, it becomes less like an interview, more like you're exploring something together.
So the main takeaway from the sources here is give enough detail to be interesting, and then make a conscious effort to ask something back. Keep that ping pong ball flying.
Takes the pressure off everyone, really. Okay, so building right on that idea of keeping the flow going, the second big skill the sources talk about is reacting naturally.
Reacting naturally. You mean like showing you're actually listening and interested?
Precisely, because if someone shares something, maybe something exciting or maybe something frustrating, and your response is just flat.
Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly. That just kills the vibe, doesn't it? It shuts things down. The sources give some good contrasting examples here.
Let's hear one.
Okay, imagine someone says, hey, I'm planning a trip to Argentina next month.
Nice.
Right. But the minimal kind of disengaged response the source warns against is just, ooh, okay.
Oof. Yeah, that feels cold. Like you didn't even really hear them or you just don't care.
Makes you not want to say anything else, right?
Yeah.
So the sources say lean into those natural, more enthusiastic reactions.
So same situation. I'm planning a trip to Argentina. What's the better response?
Something more like, wow, Argentina. That sounds amazing. Seriously. What parts are you thinking of visiting? Have you ever been before?
Ah, okay. Big difference in energy. Wow, Argentina. That's immediate. Shows surprise, interest.
That sounds amazing. Positive reinforcement.
And then specific questions that show you want to hear more. What parts have you been? It invites them to share the cool details.
Exactly. And the sources actually list out a bunch of these useful reaction phrases. Simple stuff like, that's fantastic, or no way.
Tell me more.
Yeah, or if it's bad news, maybe, oh no, what happened then? Even just sounds like, or, oh, interesting, said with the right tone, can work.
It's about showing a bit of empathy too, right? Like if someone says they had a really tough day at work.
Instead of just, oh, that's too bad, which is okay, but a bit meh.
Yeah. The sources might suggest something more like, oh no, really? I'm sorry to hear that. What made it so challenging?
Right. You acknowledge their feeling, sorry to hear that, and then you invite more detail if they want to share. What made it so challenging?
So these little reactions, these verbal nods, they make the other person feel heard, validated.
Encouraged to keep talking, exactly. It signals you're in the conversation with them, not just waiting passively. The sources really hammer home that adding these in makes the whole exchange feel much more dynamic and, frankly, more welcoming.
And this connects directly to the third area the sources focus on, which is active listening, which sounds simple, but it's more than just, not talking while the other person talks.
Oh, much more. It's about really processing what they're saying and then responding to that specific thing, not just jumping off somewhere else.
Yeah, the sources give a classic example of what not to do here. Like someone says something.
And the listener immediately pivots to something totally unrelated, maybe their own story, without even acknowledging the first point.
Right. The example was person A says, I'm thinking of learning Spanish.
And person B jumps in with, oh, speaking of things I'm thinking about, I just watched this amazing documentary about penguins.
Huh. Okay, maybe a bit extreme, but you get the idea.
Totally disconnected. It basically screams, penguins were on my mind and I wasn't really listening to your Spanish idea. The sources call that kind of thing jarring, dismissive even.
So contrast that. How does active listening work in that same scenario? Person A, I'm thinking of learning Spanish.
An active listener, according to the sources, might respond, oh, really? That's cool. What makes you want to learn Spanish?
Okay, see the difference. First, the acknowledgement and validation.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Shows you heard it and have a positive reaction.
And then the follow-up question is directly tied to what they said. What makes you want to learn Spanish?
Yeah.
You picked up their thread and you're pulling on it.
Exactly. You're engaging with their topic, not forcing your own. Another one from the sources. If someone says, my computer crashed, and I think I lost some important files. An active listening response isn't, oh man, that reminds me I really need to back up my phone.
No, it's something like, oh no, that sounds awful. Seriously, were you able to get any of them back? What a nightmare.
Again, you're responding to their problem, showing empathy, asking about their experience.
Right. So active listening, the sources argue, is really foundational. It makes the other person feel like they matter, encourages them to open up more. It creates a much better connection, a smoother flow than just, taking turns talking at each other.
Okay, so that covers keeping things going, reacting, listening. But what about when you actually need to change the subject? Maybe the topic's run its course, or you just remembered something you wanted to ask.
Ah, yes, the topic change. This is the fourth key area the sources address, because doing it badly can feel really, really abrupt.
Like slamming on the conversational brakes.
Exactly. The material gives an example of a clunky change. Imagine someone's talking about their garden.
Yeah, I've been spending a lot of time gardening lately. And the other person just replies, oh, that's nice. Anyway, did you catch the game last night?
Ouch. Yeah, abrupt is the word. Feels like you just completely ignored their gardening comment, dismissed it.
Right. So the sources strongly suggest using transition phrases, little bridges to make it smoother.
Okay, how would that work better? Same gardening comment.
A more graceful way, based on the source examples, might be, oh, that's great. Gardening, huh? I wish I had more of a green thumb myself. Speaking of hobbies, have you picked up any other new ones recently?
Ah, much smoother. Okay, so you acknowledge the gardening. Oh, that's great. Added a tiny related comment. Wish I had a green thumb.
Right, connects you for a second.
And then use that transition phrase, speaking of hobbies, to link gardening, a hobby, to the new topic, other hobbies.
Exactly. It creates a logical, even if slightly loose, connection. Makes the shift feel natural. What are some other good transition phrases the sources mention?
Oh, there are quite a few good ones. That reminds me, is super useful if something they said genuinely sparks a related thought in your mind.
Okay. By the way, is good for introducing something maybe a bit less connected, but still feels polite.
Right.
You can also make the link more direct. Like you mentioned traveling earlier. That actually reminded me, have you ever been to? Or since we're talking about work stuff, what do you think about?
Gotcha. So the core idea is don't just jump. Acknowledge, maybe add a quick comment, use a bridge phrase, then introduce the new thing.
Precisely. It makes the transition feel less like an interruption and more like just turning a corner in the conversation naturally. The sources give lots of examples showing how even small tweaks to these phrases can make it work better.
Wow, okay. That was genuinely useful stuff. A really practical deep dive into these sources on just keeping conversations flowing. We hit those 4 main techniques.
Yeah, 4 really powerful ones. Let's maybe just quickly recap them for everyone.
Good idea. So, number 1, ask great follow-up questions. Remember that ping pong game?
Don't just give a dead-end answer. Add some detail, make it interesting, and always, always hit the ball back with a question, right? Not just, I read a book, but I read a book, this cool mystery I found. Are you a reader too? Give them something to respond to.
Okay, second, react naturally. Show some life. Show you're interested.
Yeah, no more, oh.
Yeah.
Okay, use those energetic phrases. That's amazing. No way. Or even just, oh, if it fits.
Remember the Argentina trip example? Wow, that's amazing. What parts are you visiting? That enthusiasm makes a huge difference.
Definitely. Third was use active listening. Really tune in.
Respond to what they actually said. Don't change the subject to penguins if they're talking about learning Spanish.
Right. Ask about the Spanish. Oh, really? What makes you want to learn? Show you absorb their point and build on it.
And finally, number 4, change the topic smoothly. Avoid those jarring leaps.
Use the bridges. Acknowledge what was said. That's great. Use a transition phrase, speaking of hobbies, and then ease into the new topic. Have you picked up any?
Phrases like, that reminds me, or, by the way, are your friends here, makes it all feel much more graceful.
So yeah, practicing these 4 things, adding detail and asking back, reacting genuinely, listening actively, and bridging topics smoothly. The sources really suggest this will make English conversations feel way easier, more natural, more enjoyable for everyone.
Okay, so now for a little challenge, drawing directly from the source material.
Ooh, homework.
Kind of. Find someone today, maybe a friend, language partner, colleague, or, hey, even just practice talking to yourself out loud.
Okay, what's the mission?
During that chat, consciously try to use at least one good follow-up question, just one,
Got it.
and include at least one natural, engaged reaction.
Like a wow or no way.
Exactly. And attempt at least one smooth topic change using a transition phrase.
Just one of each to start.
Just one of each to focus on. Baby steps.
Makes sense.
And then, afterwards, do what the sources recommend.
Yeah.
Take a minute to think about it. Reflect.
Ask yourself.
What? Did that help keep the conversation going? Which technique felt the easiest or maybe the most effective for me? Was there anything I could maybe try a little differently next time?
That's smart. Self-correction. And hey, we'd actually love to hear how it goes for you.
Definitely. Share which technique you tried out. Let us know how it felt. And maybe what part of keeping conversations going do you still find the trickiest?
Yeah, jump into the discussion.
Because you're building these skills piece by piece. But, the sources also hint at what comes before keeping a conversation going.
You mean starting it in the first place?
Yeah.
When there isn't a conversation yet.
Exactly. That whole world of initiating chats.
The dreaded small talk.
That's the one. How to kick off those casual interactions, whether it's with someone you barely know or even a stranger.
Finding good topics, avoiding bad ones.
And just sounding confident when you're the one starting things up. That's kind of the next piece the material starts to explore.
Interesting. Well, it really hammers home that good conversations aren't just luck, are they?
Not at all. They're built. Skill and practice.
And what's really fascinating from these sources is seeing how these small, specific adjustments, things you can actually learn, can make such a massive difference in how you connect with people.
Absolutely. So keep practicing. Maybe start noticing these techniques in conversations you hear around you. Enjoy the process of becoming a more confident, engaging English speaker.